So I saw the Cleo Parker Robinson dance ensemble on Saturday night at the August Wilson Center. Um, I haven't seen too many modern companies in the past, maybe a couple, and obviously watched some on YouTube. But in my like personal opinion, it was probably one of the best modern companies I've seen in my personal history. Part of that was I think I was personally really connected by like the movement they did based on my own personal dance history. Their company is rooted in like this African American culture, Afro jazzy modern dance movement, and I in the studio I grew up in we used to do um Afro jazz. That was one of our classes, and we did a lot of like storytelling and just like learning this like whole body movement stuff, and I kind of related to a lot of their style that they did. So that's why I really liked it. It made me kind of nostalgic. But so yeah, there were three pieces in the show, and each one was very different from the other. Personally, I really enjoyed the first piece the best, and then the two others were also really good. But it kind of, again, this is a personal opinion, but it kind of confused me why they would put like one of their best pieces first and two very similar pieces afterwards. Um, I don't know. Just personally, I was a little confused of why they wouldn't leave like a standout performance last. Um, I don't know. Just my thoughts. So the first piece, so there were 10 dancers in their company in their performance, five boys and five girls, and they were all really, really talented. I really enjoyed watching them. And the first piece was called Star of the Show by Jeffrey Page, the choreographer, and it was a piece about James Brown and sort of about his personal struggles that so Cleo Parker Robinson, the leader of the company, came out before the show started and kind of got a chance to talk about the pieces, and give sort of an explanation, which I kind of liked because it made it a little more personable and also kind of described the intention of the piece, which you usually don't get during a lot of performances. So what she said was that Jeffrey Page's intention was to shine light on how James Brown was seen in the public eye as this like person of strength and style and character, and that he had a lot of dark struggles behind the scenes, what people didn't see. So that kind of showed all aspects of his life, his public life, and then his private life as well. So I really liked this one because there's a lot of storytelling, and just like a lot of evolution throughout the piece. It started out showing there was one dancer who sort of played James Brown throughout the entire thing, and he was really, really talented. They kind of, the first part, it wasn't any James Brown music, but it was sort of like rain and wind noises, and it was like James Brown in a corner with like a light shining on him, and he was dancing on the ground doing floor work that really resembled like seizure activity, and it was kind of interesting to see. And he had such this interesting like movement, and I think it kind of represented like him. So there was him, and then there was a pregnant woman, and I think that whole scene was supposed to represent his mother's struggle of raising him and giving birth to him. So that was really interesting. And then it evolved into like, I don't know, just different levels of like intensity, soulfulness, and then there was like uplifting parts, really happy music, and all throughout the whole piece it was different versions of his music. So it would kind of go from like a duet that was a little more personable to something more uplifting where you could tell it was him in the public light, and then it would go back to him personally struggling, and you could see sort of in the choreography and the intention. I don't know, just when he was happy or when he was struggling, and it was really interesting to see. Um, they also played around with costuming, which was cool. Um, at one like this really happy point, they all had different colors on, and then at different times they were in more like neutral colors to represent, I think, sort of his own thoughts and his personal struggles versus his life in the public eye, which I thought was really interesting. Um, but the music was overall really cool. I really like uplifting, like James Brown music is really fun. Um, there was one part, most of the time they were very serious moments and like a lot of intentional storytelling, but there was one part of the piece where they were really, really happy and they were like clearly performing to James, like being James Brown performing to the public, and they were really happy, but for some reason, um, I didn't like buy it. And I don't know if that was intentional or maybe it was just the fact that it was such a serious piece and all of a sudden the dancers had to be really happy, going from really serious to really happy. But I kind of thought that it came off phony to me. All of the dancers, they were like smiling and happy, but I just didn't buy it. They didn't seem authentically happy, and I don't know if that was intentional. Such a minute thing to be intentional, but yeah, I kind of read it as um James Brown smiling to the public when he was really struggling on the inside. Um, so yeah. So the other two pieces, they didn't stand out as much to me. They were kind of very similar in nature, but one was called Catharsis, and it was choreographed by Garfield Lemonius, I think, and he is a professor at the Point Park University. And that piece was really cool. They had something that I really like in choreography and I always pick up on is formations. I feel like a lot of times in my early like choreography stages, I was focused on like the actual movement that dancers are doing, and you kind of forget the importance of like a formation and the way it looks on stage. I ended up sitting at the way back of the theater, like way up high, where I could see like a bird's eye view almost of the whole stage, and I kind of like doing that because you can really appreciate formations more, I think, than when you're flat facing a stage. And so I really liked this second piece because there was a lot of playing around with like formations, um, and the movement was different from the first piece because there was less like African jazz esque movement and more just like modern, like strictly modern. Um, and I just thought it was a really cool piece. The music, um, yeah, the music was just like a modern, like lyrical, like it didn't have any lyrics or anything, so I'm not really sure what, I forget the vibe it was, but it was really cool. Just they played around with like a soloist and then a whole group, or sometimes it was like a guy and a girl, or one guy and four girls. But something I thought was cool was like they didn't um I feel like in a lot of pieces there's a lot of strategic placement with like boys and girls, like, oh, if there's one boy and a bunch of girls, then we're going to put the boy in the center. Or like if there's like I feel like there's a lot of always strategic placement of boy and girl intention, and this one it was just kind of like, oh, we'll throw one boy in the back with four girls in the front, and I kind of just liked how there was no like sex, almost no gender to the dance. Unless there was like a duet, you could tell like the distinction of like a boy dancing with a girl with a partner. But I think, I don't know, that's just something that stood out to me. And then the last piece was called Movement, and it was choreographed by Cleo Parker Robinson herself. And this one was really cool. It was kind of based around like civil rights, and it had six six different songs integrated, and they were all like African American like soulful singers. So they had like an Aretha Franklin song. I'm trying to see who else. Like Wade in the Water. Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. I don't know, it was just very like soulful, and I really liked that. It started out with a recording of Martin Luther King speaking, and let me see. Yeah, so they performed it. A little history in the program was that they performed it in Montgomery, Alabama, on the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, which I thought was really cool. And that you could definitely tell um, that was like the intention of the piece. This piece I really liked because it really highlighted the strength of the dancers. You could, I don't know, it was just like the last piece where you could just be like, wow, the strength of this company was really, really cool. Yeah, and it was very similar to the piece before in that it it kind of had the same similar structure, even though it was different choreographers of like, oh, a group and then a duet and then a little trio would come out and then be the whole group, then it would be just boys, just girls. Um, but I like how they played with different sections. Um, and yeah, it was really beautiful, and I really enjoyed the show. I enjoyed getting to hear um, Cleo Parker Robinson speak. I think it really helped fuel the performance and like the intention of their company, and kind of get an idea more so than what you would just like read in a program. So yeah, that was my take on this performance.